What's up, guys? George Bilecki here with Foxborough Rush. But hey, check out the latest episode of Hold My Banner. AJ Debonsa. Yes, the AJ Debonsa, #1 high school recruit in the country. Future #1 overall pick in the NBA. Stop by the show to talk with Ante and Trav on Hold My Banner. Full interview there, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. You could also watch it on YouTube as well. Now, let's get to Rush. What's up? What's happening? George Bilecki, Travis Thomas, T. I love you, man.
I love you more, man.
Let's bring these good vibes into the weekend, huh?
Yeah, hey, baseball's back. March Madness is cracking.
Yep.
College hockey's going on. NFL draft coming up. Come on, baby.
Patriots got a new wide receiver, an actual wide receiver, too. Yep, we'll get into that. We'll talk about Stefon Diggs signing with the Pats, 3 years, $69 million. I absolutely love the move. Also, we got two special guests on this one.
Oh.
Taylor Kyles. I know you guys have been clamoring, hey, is Taylor ever going to come on? He came on. We talked plenty of Stefon Diggs, Travis Hunter future possibilities in New England, including how he fits at wide receiver, and so much arm length and wingspan talk as well. You guys will absolutely love it. Taylor's the best. And DJ Bien-Amie of ESPN Houston covers the Texans, covered Stefon Diggs. He stops by the show as well. He talks to Casey Hudson, fresh off that signing of Stefon Diggs to the Pats. Trav, let's get into it.
Let's
3
go.
years, $69 million. Stefon Diggs, the best wide receiver in New England right now, even though he can't even do actual 100% football moves. But
One leg.
one is the state of their wide receiver room. The other is the state of Stefon Diggs. Again, 3 years, $69 million, $26 million guaranteed. That's the real number. What do you make of this signing? Will be 32, coming off a torn ACL.
Hated it. You and I talked about...
Past tense. You said hated. No, go.
Well...
Get it. Go.
When you word it that way, I guess it's grown on me slightly.
Yeah.
But I hated it because of all the conversations we had, GM George. We named every G-damn wide receiver available in the league, and we glossed over a couple guys. We glossed over Davante Adams. No, not interested. Too much of a diva. We glossed over Stefon Diggs. No, not interested. Coming off an injury, too much of a diva. And we talked to all these other guys that the Patriots did strike out on. Let's call it what it is. But this reeks of desperation to me.
Yeah.
If you bring a Stefon Diggs in on a 1-year prove-it deal that doesn't cost you a ton of money, I don't have a problem with it. But they obviously invested in this guy, and I just think it was a desperation move. He is not what he used to be. Even when he was healthy with the Texans, he didn't look like the same player. He looked like a complementary piece to an already very good, very young, very dynamic wide receiving group there in Houston with a young quarterback in C.J. Stroud. I told you a couple shows back, the best place for him to be is in Houston. Recover from your injury. Fit back in with those receivers as they recover from their own injuries. Work with C.J. Stroud. Take him to the next level, and you're closer to a ring with the Texans than you are the Patriots. I think this is a step back in his career for him, except for the money. And then the Patriots, I thought they overpaid, and it looked desperate. But to your point, with one leg, he is the best wide receiver you have.
Yeah.
But I just thought he should have been signed to a 1-year prove-it deal. That's all.
I get it. And, like, everything you say is super valid. I understand it. Like, yes to everything. I hear you. I understand you. I feel you. Other side of the spectrum, you bring up Davante Adams. I think that's brilliant because he got the same amount of guaranteed money from the Rams. But like we found out with DK Metcalf, like we found out with Chris Godwin, what was their interest of signing here in New England? If Davante Adams went for the same guaranteed money and he wanted to be on the West Coast, and I think that's a guy that wanted to be with a contender, and that's what the Patriots are not. But the Patriots struck out on T. Higgins. Couldn't trade for him once he got tagged. Everyone knew that. Couldn't trade for DK Metcalf because he told them he was not interested in the extension. And they couldn't sign Chris Godwin, even though basically writing a blank check because he wanted to stay in Tampa. So instead of striking out, and saying, you know, I'm done shooting my shot, I'm going to have one more beer and I'm going to go home. I don't care if I get a number. They went for one more, and they got it. And if this was a healthy Stefon Diggs, does he even end up here? I don't know, because that money could have been absurd. But yes, he's 32. Yes, he's coming off a torn ACL. How he's developed his game over the years. When he was in Minnesota, man, and Buffalo, that was a guy that you'd be amazed at how good he was as a route runner on the short to intermediate routes. And then all of a sudden downfield, how Josh Allen or Case Keenum or Kirk Cousins could find him. Like, he did everything. His game's different now. You're going to get 10 to 15 yards per catch with him, which is fine. He's a chain mover. And he used to be a just like coveted man beater with his route running, with his footwork. He's developed into, let me find the soft spot in the coverage, let me be smart against zone, which is everything the Patriots, again, their wide receiver room doesn't, do. I'm fired up about this Diggs signing. It's the same way they bring in a Matt Collins. You go, what? Big, good in the red zone, and is good against man, good downfield. Patriots didn't have that. Good against zone, smart, and you know what he is, man? With his resume, with his credentials, he's a coach in the wide receiver room where when you have Jalen Polk and Javon Baker acting out of pocket, Stefon Diggs is the guy that goes, shut up and do this. Understand this work, and it's more than a coach. It's coming from a player.
I don't know how in the hell you see that coming out of Diggs when that's a guy we've seen have a history of being on the sidelines.
But it would be like year 5 in Minnesota, year 4 in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And think of Todd Downing was in Minnesota with him.
Right.
Ben McDaniel's on the Texans staff, wide receiver coach Josh McDaniel's brother. Like they know Stefon
They know
Diggs.
him.
They know it. And when he's healthy, he tore his ACL end of October. He should be back by, let's say, week 4 this season.
Sure.
We'll see the snap count. Like,
Yep.
This is what Drake May needs. Good over the middle, reliable, smart, good hands. Yes, it's not the sexiest, but again, strikeout. They kept swinging, and they upgraded the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
This is a short-term solution. They're still going to go in the draft with long-term solutions. Maybe a Travis Hunter, still maybe a Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins. Those are some guys we spoke about with Taylor Kyles of CLNS. Knows so much about the college game and football in general. Here's my interview with Taylor Kyles. He's Taylor Kyles. You can find him covering all Patriots things on CLNS. You could also catch him on Patriots Daily as well. Give him a follow, TKyles39 on X as well. You probably already do. Taylor, what's up, man? Good to see you on the show.
Good to see you, buddy. Miss seeing that handsome face every day.
Likewise to you. I'm amped to bring you on. I got to say, when we brought Barth on about a month ago, the comments on YouTube go, I think they're going to get Taylor on. Like, I think we're closer to Taylor. So people at Foxborough Rush have been clamoring for you. Can't blame them. You, Barth, Evan, you guys do a great job covering everything Patriots, especially college prospects. But before we even get talking draft, man, let's talk Stefon Diggs. Signed 3 years, $69 million, $26 million guaranteed. That's the important number. Will be 32, coming off the torn ACL. But overall, what do you make of that signing, what it means for the Patriots, and what it does for the Patriots?
I think it's a big move. It fills a glaring need. Now, obviously, you're not really expecting that Stefon Diggs is going to be the guy that necessarily takes Drake May to the next stratosphere, but it gives him that reliable, experienced, proven veteran that he didn't have last season. Now, you have him, Mac Hollins, Kendrick Bourne. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But now you've got some guys, especially in Hollins and Diggs, that are intense, that are very competitive, and that know how to have success in this league, practice habits, and all those things. Not only is that going to benefit Drake May, also guys who played with Josh Allen, they're going to be able to make him look good off script, uncover whenever things break down, but also for that young wide receiver room. You've got Pop Douglas, you've got Javon Baker, who hopefully breaks out, but also Jalen Pope, a second-round pick. Now, Pop, he's probably been your best receiver the past couple of years, but there's so much meat left on the bone for those guys. Now when Diggs, who I think can complement their skill sets pretty well and teach them maybe some techniques that'll help their game, they have someone to help bring out those tools. Again, something they didn't have in Kendrick Bourne, who is a veteran and, he's been in the league for a while, but he's never been Stefon Diggs. So gives Drake May a reliable target, again, that he hasn't had. And I think it's just great mentorship for the entire offense and someone who's already familiar with this system because he worked under Brian Daboll, who was the OC in Buffalo for a couple years. Those two overlapped.
Yeah, I love that overlap. I love you bring up, too, like how just technical, it's fundamental for Stefon Diggs. Never had to overly rely on his athleticism, just a phenomenal route runner. Now that's sticking your foot in the ground, changing direction on a dime. We'll see that coming off the torn ACL. But what is the Stefon Diggs that the Patriots are getting now? His game has evolved. He's not that explosive guy that could be a deep ball receiver like he was in Buffalo and Minnesota. What is he now in your eyes, especially thinking of him in a Josh McDaniels system?
Yeah, so he's in a similar vein to Cooper Kupp and Chris Godwin, other guys we were considering for this veteran receiver role, where really they never relied on speed. And there's a certain level of explosiveness and quickness you do need that they've all lost due to injury and age, what have you. But at least with Stefon Diggs, this is a guy who did have that outside versatility, still has a bit of it, but really you want to keep him inside the numbers, rather, at this point in his career, deters press coverage, gives him two-way releases. So that crafty route running, which is where a lot of his success has come from, really starts to fall into play. Also, the great ball skills, understanding how to find spaces and exploit zone coverage, make defenders uncomfortable. He caught a touchdown against Christian Gonzalez, one of the first touchdowns I think that Gonzalez has given up in his entire career, because he was able to get on his toes really quickly, throw a fake, and get Gonzalez off of this spot. So no, you're not getting the guy that's necessarily going to take the top off on go balls or win on a whole lot of post routes, but he is going to be able to make man coverage defenders uncomfortable, find those soft spots against zone, especially over the middle. That's where a lot of his success came in Houston, where it's, deep stop routes right between the hashes, or it's these corner routes, different ways you just kind of sit in those soft pockets. That's where I think you're going to find him having a lot of his success. And again, against zone coverages, that's one place that Drake didn't have reliable wide receivers. Most of that fell on his tight ends and sometimes running backs. So that's going to be an area of the field that he can complement Drake Maye. Hopefully you also get a vertical threat that can take the top off.
Yeah, I love you mentioned middle of the field. That's Drake Maye's favorite place to throw the football. For Drake Maye, exactly, precisely with him, what does this do for that second-year QB for the Pats?
I think it just gives him a binky. You saw it. He had that in Hunter Henry. He had it to a degree in Austin Hooper. Those veterans who, again, they know how to exploit zone coverage. They know how to just get open. That's half the job, right? It's get open and catch the football. Now, Stefon Diggs, phenomenal hands, only dropped 2 passes last year, despite the fact I think he only trailed Chris Godwin when it came to receiving conversions up through week 8 when he had the injury. Again, not going to be the same guy, but now Drake has a receiver who's worked with young quarterbacks, knows how to get on the same page with those guys. I think it's just some comfort for that young quarterback, because with the guys that we saw last season, they did their best given the situation, I'm sure, but it just clearly was not up to par.
Yeah, if you look at Stefon Diggs' resume, it did jump out to me. Like, think back. It was Case Keenum in Minnesota. It was Kirk Cousins after getting paid and being the guy, so into a new role. Then it was Josh Allen, as you alluded to. C.J. Stroud, year 2. It's now Drake Maye, year 2. For all the red flags we see, like visually see on the sidelines, that would take 4 or 5 years at the previous teams. But this is a veteran that has no problem working with younger QBs. I feel like that'll help so much in his continued development. And like you said, too, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, not giving up on him yet. They struggled to even be active on game days. They didn't even know where to line up. This is a guy that doesn't just know where to line up. He knows how to get open. I feel like that'll unlock so much of the offense, too.
And the competitiveness. You mentioned Drake Maye. Like, this is a guy who wants to be great. We've heard it. The coaches raved about him last year, where T.C. McCartney's saying he may be the smartest guy in the building. That's the kind of quarterback that I think Stefon Diggs loves. Now, with Josh Allen, obviously, was so integral. One, because he was a great player. At the end of the day, as long as you're productive, that's going to help a young quarterback. But also the experience that he brought, having worked with Kirk Cousins, who's also a very cerebral quarterback. And I think that for all the flack that Stefon Diggs gets, where, yeah, he wants to be a featured player, but he also wants to win. He's going to celebrate his teammates. It's why he's been a captain 4 times. He was a captain in his only season in Houston and was also a multi-time captain for the Bills. And he's coming to a Patriots team where there's not a whole lot of mouths to feed, so he's going to be a featured player. Now I think it's just going to come to him and Drake Maye getting on that same page. But considering the fire both these guys bring, I think they're going to connect very quickly. And we saw those videos of Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs where they're like best buddies. I'm telling you, I could see that coming with Drake Maye, because I think that they're going to be very like-minded as competitors.
Yeah, Drake Maye, I know he was saying in an interview, too, they were asking who followed who first on Instagram. He's like, I probably followed him way back in the day. I grew up watching him. That's a guy I played Madden with, a guy I looked up to. Drake Maye, here's a competitor as he is. He's a real deal with everything. Stefon Diggs walking into that room just widens his eyes. He knows the possibilities. Before we get to draft talk, what they've done through free agency, they've addressed so many needs. Even the addition of Mac Hollins, which you alluded to. Yeah, he's a wide receiver 4, but he helps where they needed help. What do you want to see done before the draft at the end of April of, hey, this is another position the Patriots should address, or another position group if it's not an exact position as well?
I think just a veteran at left tackle. It doesn't have to be Stefon Diggs necessarily, which, again, we're at the point in free agency where that's pretty lofty, even at this point in his career. But Tyron Smith, just like Diggs, is not the player he used to be. He did take a huge step back last season with the Jets, but he's better than anything you've got on the roster, brings that experience, brings a certain level of reliability when he's on the field. So if you sign somebody like him, Jedrick Wills, much less consistent, but someone that Vrabel worked with last season in Cleveland, hands-on, and maybe if he thinks that's someone that he's comfortable with, they can bring into the fold, just so you're not desperate. I still think that tackle is the way to go if you don't have an option at Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, or a trade down. But I'd also just like them to say, hey, if something crazy happens and we can get Travis Hunter, now if we want to draft an Ariante Ursary, but we don't want to throw him out there, you at least have options for the short term.
All right, I like the names you're bringing up. All right, that got the wheels turning. Let's talk NFL draft. If Travis Hunter falls to the Patriots at 4, does Stefon Diggs change that they would draft Travis Hunter?
I don't think Stefon Diggs really affects their plans. Again, I think he's just a safety blanket, and he gives them one more guy that they could say, if we went into battle tomorrow, you're probably looking at Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, and Stefon Diggs as your starters. But I still think they need another young impact player. And this is a new regime, so we don't know how exactly they feel about Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, although I'm sure they'll still get opportunities. So I think that Travis Hunter should be a lock if he's there for the Patriots, because he is a truly special talent that could make Drake May better. He makes Christian Gonzalez better on defense. Really rare prospect too. As a cornerback, that's where I think he should be long-term. Short-term, I think he could be a receiver because the Patriots don't have a lot of talent there. But I also think that if you play him on the other side of the ball, you have a potentially generational Hall of Fame tandem with Christian Gonzalez, who can match up with anybody, and Travis Hunter, who whenever the ball is coming his way, he's a bigger threat to catch it than the guy he's covering, which is not something you can say about many defensive backs in history, especially guys with the coverage ability that Travis Hunter has, and being someone who's such a good teammate, knows how to take care of himself. Like, checks every box that you want from a character perspective. So if Travis Hunter's there, unless someone's like, I'm throwing 2 first-round picks and a second rounder or something real sweet, that kind of deal your way, I don't think you even blink. It's Travis Hunter, especially a dual threat. Mike Vrabel, game recognized game.
I don't know if those 2 first and a second would get me to pass up on Travis Hunter either. The need at wide receiver. So before I get to your vision, because I love that you brought up, I see him cornerback long term, and it makes sense. If he gets drafted by the Pats, I think the bigger need for them with him, and because of Carlton Davis, is wide receiver. How would he now slot into this offense? Is he the guy downfield, takes the top off of defense, while Stefon Diggs is more underneath, intermediate, short route type of receiver?
Travis Hunter has the most juiced of almost everybody on your team, if not everyone on your team. So, yeah, I do think that while I think he's better at the Z, like Josh McDaniels' offense, unless you are a Devontae Adams where you can just feast on one-on-one matchups, I think that the Z is where you want to be because you're off the line of scrimmage. You get to get moved around in motion. That gives you advantages, easier releases, and that's where I think Diggs will thrive. But that's where I think Travis Hunter's an absolute cheat code. I also think that Travis Hunter right now needs to put on some weight because you saw in college, if he's running just a go route and he's outside the numbers, he gets bullied to the sideline sometimes, would get pushed out of bounds all the way. So I think you want to keep him out of those situations. But right now, this is an offense that's built to be very condensed. So not a lot of guys outside the numbers, period. You're going to have to do it at some point. And I'm sure like you got Mac Hollins, Kendrick Bourne can do some of that, Kayshon Boutte, even Jalen Polk. You've got guys that can moonlight on the outside, but the prime position in this offense, I think, will be Z. I think we'll see Diggs, and if Travis Hunter joins, I think he'll be used there. But Hunter would definitely get the majority of those ISO situations.
I love that vision for him on offense. All right, so your vision, though, you said it to him. You think he could be a long-term Pro Bowl caliber, All-Pro, maybe Hall of Fame cornerback. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't know. But, hey.
I don't throw that around often, but I think that's fair because he's special.
So what's your vision with him then? You draft him. It's your team. It's year 1, and it is with the Patriots. This will be year 1, and then year 5, year 10. What's your vision with Travis Hunter overall in the NFL?
I'd like to see him stick to one side of the ball on at least like 70% of snaps, right? Because he's still young, needs to adjust to the NFL game. And especially on offense, like, yes, you are dictating, but at least on defense, you can say, hey, you're playing man coverage on third downs, right? There's no mystery. It's man, everybody knows what we do. You just got to lock the guy down. Travis says, okay, I'm going to stare at his hips, go where he goes, be an athlete. Once he declares the route, I got eyes on the ball. He'll take his lumps, but I just think that's a little more simple than on offense where, again, you are dictating the terms, but you need chemistry with Drake May. Also, Travis Hunter wasn't really active in wide receiver meetings. Like, he was getting hand signals from Shedeur Sanders on the field to know what route to run. He has a long way to go in terms of being a wide receiver. On both sides of the ball, he's got a long way to go. But I think early on, again, the Patriots have the most glaring need at wide receiver because you've got Gonzo, because you've got Carlton Davis. Mm-hmm. So I'd like him to get that rapport with Drake May early on, maybe be featured in a J.C. Jackson kind of role where, like, early on when they were stacked at corner with Jason McCourty, obviously Stephon Gilmore, it was more obvious passing situations. They'd kind of mix him in so he didn't have to play the run. That's what I'd like to see Travis Hunter do early on. After a year, 2 years, once the young guys hopefully step up, the wide receiver room looks a little more talented, a little more experienced, That's where I'd like you to say, okay, now, Travis, we're going to put more on your plate. You're going to be more of a package player on offense, but we want you to focus on defense, because imagine Keon White and Milton Williams are breathing down your neck, and you have to choose between throwing a Christian Gonzalez on one outside spot or Travis Hunter on the other. I don't like those odds, and that scares me a lot more than Travis Hunter, a wide receiver, as much as that is also a scary thing to think.
Stream the entire Sox season with the NESN 360 annual plan, available at an all-new reduced price of just $20 a month, paid annually. And for a limited time, get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit NESN360.com to sign up today. That sounds like a lot of sacks, a lot of turnovers. And that's what the Patriots defense certainly needs. All right, so taking a look again, number 4. I know one tackle. He's a tackle right now. You're big on Armand Membu. Why do you like the right tackle right now out of Missouri?
Because, one, we know that he's a tackle. Whether he's on the right side or the left side, yes, we'll figure that out at some point. And I think that's for teams to do their research and see if he'll be comfortable. Because everybody's different. Some guys, it's just like, it's like wiping with the other hand. Some guys, it's like, yeah, I can do it. It's really not that big of a deal. So it's going to be up to the teams to decide. But when I look at Membu, one, he was a more explosive athlete than Will Campbell, who obviously everyone's penciling into that number 4 spot. And he's 20 pounds heavier. Armand Membu's 330 pounds and a ridiculous athlete, on top of being a very refined pass protector. Now, he plays on a side where he doesn't face as many premier rushers. That needs to be taken into consideration. But in the 5-6 games that I watched, I didn't see any truly egregious losses. So I didn't see him shoot his hands, get knocked down, and then there's a clear path to the quarterback. I did see that with Will Campbell more than I wanted to. And while we could talk about the arm length thing, I know that's going to be a separate discussion that we're going to get into. But Armand Membu doesn't have a lot of physical attributes that worry you. He's a little short for the position, but he's wide, he's bulky, and he has adequate arms, like 33 and a half inches, which is more than okay. So when you put all that together, try him at left tackle. If he doesn't work out, okay, you have a right tackle to take over for Morgan Moses and someone who's more talented than a Caden Wallace, who also has guard flexibility at this stage of his career probably, unless he obviously finds some way to get on the field at one of the tackle spots this year. So I just think Armand Membu comes with a lot fewer concerns, and he still addresses a pretty significant position of need.
Yeah, and he'll be 21 his rookie season, like actually turning 21. Really raw. Watch him on film too. Really fluid mover. Like, there are guys that can glide and mirror edge rushers. That dude just like absolutely slides across the field to his right, to his left laterally. Like, just the fluid movement he has. You mentioned 6'40", 330, and with his, 34-inch vertical, I have it here, 9 foot 7-inch broad, and then he just went up to the bench and just did 31 reps and was like, all right, guys, have a good day. I see it, and I get it. Yeah, right, there's a 6'4" talk, but at 330, there's, in a way, it sounds like he has less red flags. And a Will Campbell where, and I'll ask this too, you can, come back to me on what I'm saying with Membu, but also there's that but what is Will Campbell? And we don't know.
Yeah, so the thing with Will Campbell is that we talk about the arm length, but it's also wingspan, right? So arm length obviously is important because offensive line play is like boxing. Reach is important. If I can hit you before you can even get close enough to make contact with me, I'm going to win that battle more times than not. Now, there's one end of the spectrum where you can be Vidarian Lowe, where his arms are so long, they're actually a disadvantage, because if you're shooting two hands and they get knocked down and you're not even close to the guy, it's really hard to recover. You basically already lost the rep. But if you're a Will Campbell and your arms aren't as short, it just means that that's a little bit closer the other guy can get to you and try to make a move. Now, in college, that's fine. Like, you're in the SEC going up against some really talented players, but you're going to be seeing Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, the best of the best on planet Earth, where they check the mental box, so they're just as smart, if not smarter than you, more technically refined, and they're more athletic. If someone checks all the boxes, I'm sorry, brother, you're at a disadvantage, right? Because you don't really have an edge anymore. At least with Membu, you don't see those physical attributes where you're like, yeah, man, against the real freaks of nature, I'm sorry, you're just kind of going to lose the battle before it's even won. There are things where you can make up for it, right? Will Campbell has great feet. He's got really patient and technique sound hands. I think he's going to be a very good tackle if he wants to stay there, but I think he's going to be a great guard. And even when you look at the way that these two guys lose, with Membu, he usually loses against speed to power, where guys get ahead of steam, they get into his chest, and because sometimes he lets guys initiate the contact, he ends up getting pushed back even though he's a bigger guy. Will Campbell's much better against power. That's something he worked on throughout his career. But because of the arms, he struggles to his corners. Because if he misses, the guy's already so close, they can kind of initiate their move. And he's also not quite as explosive enough relative to Mbembe to recover quickly. So if I'm an offensive tackle, you don't want to lose regardless, but Will Campbell will lose in a way where he has no shot at recovering, whereas Mbembe will get pushed back, but at least can somewhat stand his ground and give the quarterback room to operate. So I'm basically splitting hairs because these are both fantastic players and both guys have concerns. My personal preference, I would just like the guy who is 100% a tackle with Pro Bowl upside. I just don't see that Pro Bowl upside from Campbell on the outside, although I do see it if he were to kick into guard.
Yeah, he'll be a good tackle. He could be a great guard and maybe an all-pro guard, while Mbembe could be an all-pro tackle. And let's talk about it. I mean, the arm measurements from Senior Bowl to Combine, now to Pro Days have all been different for all these prospects. It's like absurd to me the fact that the NFL can't have a uniform way to do the measurements. It's cost these guys money. But no matter what, it's coming out for Will Campbell. It's sub 80-inch wingspan. It's sub 79-inch wingspan. And the guys we've seen, like a Peter Skoronski with a shorter wingspan that played tackle, got bumped inside. A Gray Zabel was a tackle, will get bumped inside. That's the one thing I just can't get around. It's, we could argue arm length, and he's just, a few eighths of an inch off from 33-inch arms. Will Campbell would have to be such an outlier as an offensive tackle with that short of a wingspan, because your point, you want to touch him first. All right, if you don't have the long arms, you at least want to be tougher to get around, and that's what someone like an Ante Ursary brings to the tackle position.
I love me some Ante Ursary. He's kind of like, he's the day two Armand Mbembe for me, where another guy who's got freaky athleticism for his size, really good on outside zone and pulling out in space, better than you'd expect for such a big guy. But also they can struggle against power in a weird way for mountains of men, but are really good on their edges. Again, they just kind of defy everything you'd expect if you were just looking at them and trying to guess what they can do. And when it comes to the measurables, they can matter, because the reason that teams care about any of this stuff is because it splits hairs. If you have two guys graded pretty similarly, they'll usually go to the guy with the better measurables in those cases, unless they just love someone's profile and some other aspects. But at the end of the day, the tape is the tape. If you are doing the work that you should be doing, you already knew that Will Campbell's arm lengths were significant. And it didn't really matter how short they were. If they were sub 33, yes, that could have cost him money, because that is so far of an outlier, because 33, even Dante Scarnecchia admitted it. Scott Peters admitted it. That's about the cutoff, unless the guy is just crazy talented in some other facets like a Will Campbell. But he's not a Gray Zabel. He's not a Peter Skoronski, because those guys, I think pro evaluators and even amateur scouts like myself know that they are guards at the next level. I think people know that Will Campbell can play tackle and stick there. It's just a matter of how good he's going to be. But I mean, we're listening to online discourse. I would be really stunned if teams were just blown away by the arm length, especially now that he's hit that 33, because it's not egregiously bad, but it's enough that, again, it just caps how much you think he can do at the next level in terms of hitting a ceiling. But he's better than a Skoronski, because his arms were so short that it was like you can't even consider it. So very different cases, I would say. All
right. No, I like that. I like that call out on that too, because you see the measurements, but that's a Skoronski guy now through two different coaching leadership, still sticking at left guard, not even trying them at left tackle. All right. We talked plenty about tackles. We talked about the receivers, but those later round guys like day 2, round 2, or day 2, round 3, what's a wide receiver that you would love to see the Patriots, or let's go pass catcher. You can bring in the tight ends, whoever. What's a pass catcher you would love to see the Patriots land?
Either one of the Iowa State guys, honestly. Jalen Noel, excellent separator, really good speed. Kind of reminds me of a Tyler Lockett, where he's tough, he can track the ball. Like, he's a little undersized, but you're not worried about him. He was also a captain on that team, and I would love, like, we've already seen the character matters for the guys that Vrabel has brought in. I could see him targeting a lot of captains. Like Ursary was a captain in college. Will Campbell was a captain. So, that's just another edge that Jalen Noel has. Also has a 30-visit schedule with the Patriots. So that already lines up there. Was uncoverable at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile. And then his teammate Jaden Higgins. Now, he's kind of the opposite. He's a bigger guy, more physical. He's going to box out defenders. And even though he's not super fluid, like I think the thing that separates him and Ted McMillan, similar guys, but they don't have great speed, but they win because they're good route runners. Jaden Higgins has like no wasted movement. Very, very efficient, so it cuts down on his defender's ability to catch up to the route. But Ted McMillan, I think he just is more fluid and has better bend in his routes. So he creates more true separation where he snaps it off so quickly because he's able to kind of sink and explode. Then it's hard for defenders to keep track because he's just stopped on a dime. For Higgins, he's similar, but I think he's a little bit more stiff. So if there's a really athletic corner who's also refined, I don't think they're as threatened by him, but still, he's got the size, he's got the route running ability. Probably like like McMillan, need to play him inside the numbers more often than not. But I think that McMillan gives you a little bit more outside, again, because of his route running versatility. But either one of Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel, I'm really hot on those two guys as day 2 prospects because I like the attitude and the leadership that they bring respectively. And the skill set, I just think it translates to the pros very well.
Yeah, talk about athletic freaks. Jalen Noel, the way he tested too, his vertical, his broad bench, long arms too, confident hands. And hey, I just got to say, you validate me, man, because I watch Jalen Noel. I go, that's Tyler Lockett, but I think just more explosive, more athletic, and a damn good run blocker too. You just get a guy. You get a guy that loves ball. You'd get a mother effort in Jalen Noel, which I think the wide receiver room needs. All right, give me one more then. I'm talking late here because I want to get out. You know, we've all been talking the same 5, 6 prospects picks. Give me that one guy you're like, all right, man, if the Patriots get him, this is someone I love, but it's an underrated guy.
I would go with, let's go Kyle Williams out of Washington State. I don't know how he's going to go necessarily, but I think he's someone people aren't really hearing about. Yeah. Another guy who was fantastic at the Senior Bowl, probably the best route runner, I think. Now, his hands are suspect, and that's why I think he's going to fall because his tracking can be pretty off at times, and he'll just drop some that you don't really expect him to. At the end of the day, that's the other half of the job. But the separation part, he's excellent at. He knows how to set up defenders, get into their blind spots, attack leverage, just make them uncomfortable. So when you break, you are the one dictating the terms rather than them being comfortable when you're at the top. And also, I really like the vertical speed. Like, I think the Patriots, I don't even think they need to draft someone high, to be totally honest. I'm starting to come off of that now that they've got Diggs, but I do think they need someone who can give Drake May a guy that can create separation on that go ball or on those posts. So I think Kyle Williams is in the vein where he can do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would like to see Pop Douglas on down the field passes. He made it work at moments, but that's not the guy. That's not the fit. And you need to help out your rookie quarterback. Taylor Kyles of CLNS, Patriots Press Pass, Patriots Daily. You're the best, man. Appreciate you hopping on the show. It's great talking ball with you, bro.
Always, man. Can't wait to see you next time, but appreciate you having me on.
If you're enjoying the show, be sure to check out Nesson's Daily Sports Podcast. Boston has entered the chat. We talk about all the trending sports news in Boston and around the country and globe. Available on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Twitch, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Good tackle talk, Trav. Hey, good Travis Hunter talk, Trav.
Now you got my attention, my friend. Although I'm a little nervous, you signed Stefon Diggs. It's like, is that a backup plan? Like, hey, maybe they're hearing stuff that Hunter won't be there for, so they wanted to make sure they got a wide receiver. I'm a little nervous with
that. I think with the Russell Wilson signing to the Giants, which makes no sense. I see that. I say no, Travis Hunter. I don't think he makes it to 4. But hey, if he's there at 4, as Taylor explained, it makes sense. They're not going to pass up on that talent. Shout out Taylor for joining the show. Now here's DJ Bien-Amie with Casey Hudson on Stefon Diggs.
All right, it is time to welcome in NFL Nation reporter for the Houston Texans, DJ Bien-Amie. First of all, how are you doing? How's it going? You guys just lost someone to New England. So what's the temperature down in Texas right now?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I would say the temperature is pretty fine. Like, Texans fans expected Stefon Diggs to be elsewhere once they traded for Christian Kirk. The Texans were never going to pay over $20 million per year for a receiver that's turning 32 this year, coming up with torn ACL. They did want to bring him back on a team-friendly deal, but once it was very clear how far off they were numbers-wise, that made sense why they went after Christian Kirk. And now Stefon Diggs is going to be in New England, and I think that Stefon Diggs could be a pretty nice piece for Drake May.
Okay, I love you already alluding to that. We're going to do a full circle kind of story time here because it's almost a year ago now. April 3rd is when the Texans acquired Stefon Diggs from the Bills. But what I need to know from you is, what was the temperature initially when this trade was made? He was coming off of a 1,000-plus yard season. He was a key asset and workhorse for the Bills, but there was a lot of conversation around whether or not, temperature-wise and attitude-wise and locker room-wise, if he was a fit. So the initial reaction when he ended up heading down to the Texans.
Yeah, I thought when he originally got traded to the Texans, I believed that, okay, the Texans are trying to go win the Super Bowl. That was my initial thought. And it made sense, right? C.J. Stroud had a great rookie year. D'Amico Ryans, great debut head coaching season. You hit on Will Anderson's. Their thing was starting to come along. You had some offensive line pieces, at least you thought. You just need to upgrade a few spots. And You had Nico Collins, Tank Dell, really give C.J. Stroud 3 basically borderline 1,000-yard receivers that could, make a very, very prolific passing attack. And at that point, they already had Joe Mixon. So it was really, that's why a lot of people thought C.J. Stroud could be an MVP type of quarterback in 2025. Obviously, the offensive line got in the way of that, and some Bobby Slowick, which is why the offensive line is drastically different. And Bobby Slowick is no longer in Houston. But when he got to the Texans, he ingratiated himself greatly. A lot of the narrative surrounding Stefon Diggs, it's kind of hoopla, in all honesty. I was kind of surprised how well he fit with guys based off of what the narrative was. Even down to like how he interacts with media, like he talks to media members. It might not always be on the record, but if you want to ask something on background, he'll talk to you. He doesn't think he's above anybody. I remember when there was a lot of discussion about getting media members out of the locker room from the NFLPA. He was one of the guys on the Texans that said, nah, let's keep it what it is. So obviously I'm always going to be grateful to Stefon for that. But when it comes to his teammates, always having guys by his locker, always conversing with guys, never ever butted heads with CJ. Him and CJ had a great relationship. CJ and Steph went to France to practice and throw some routes when Steph was getting ready for his fashion week. He is very, very big into fashion and watches, that's for sure. You guys will see that fairly quickly. But yeah, the temperature when they brought in Steph was they're trying to go for it, win the Super Bowl.
I love that you painted the perfect picture there because you mentioned the initial excitement saying, okay, this could be a championship caliber team and roster with this guy coming in as an addition. But more importantly, you talk about the fact that he's so open to the media. He's all about supporting what journalists have to do. And then you also mentioned CJ Stroud. So let's stick with that for a second, because Stroud being a young quarterback, especially this previous season, a lot of weight on his shoulders, a lot of expectation. He needed to take another step. Kind of have a similar situation going on here in New England. Drake May, young quarterback, sophomore season. That's almost one of the most crucial points in a young quarterback's career. So journalistically, did you ever see or hear of any conversations between CJ Stroud and Stefon Diggs, or just, leadership or advice, or just why Stroud gravitated towards him so much outside of him just being his wide receiver?
Well, I would say mainly because Steph, one thing that gets misconstrued is Steph really wants to win. Obviously wants to get paid too, but he really, really wants to win. I think there's I've covered a few NFL wide receivers. I've been covering the league since 2021. I haven't met a receiver as competitive as Stefon Diggs is. I remember one time in the training camp practice when the fans were there, it had to be early August. It was red zone period, and Stefon Diggs catches like a spot route, or a hitch or whatever. Let's just call it a hitch. And he catches the ball, he turns it up, and he dives into the end zone, gets up and gets in the face of Kamara Lassiter, who was a pretty standout rookie for the Texans in 2024. So one thing I've noticed is his competitive edge, and CJ also has an ultra competitive edge. So those two connected off of that. And also CJ is really good at ingratiating himself with all kinds of people. It doesn't matter what position you're at, whether you're a practice squad guy, backup left tackle, star receiver. There's plenty of times I've seen CJ kind of hold mini Bible studies with the backup linebackers at his locker. So him and Steph are always going to mesh because CJ knows how to mesh with people from all walks of life. So that relationship was working up until he got hurt. Because even in the game where he got hurt, he was on pace to have one of his best games as a Texan. Unfortunately, he got hurt in the third quarter against the Colts, and the Texans missed him, sorely missed him throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, that can definitely deflate the air and the energy that was really kind of surrounding Stefon Diggs and the role that he needed to play for the Texans. I love that you mentioned the fact that he didn't only integrate with CJ Stroud, he integrated with other players. And one of the other headlines, as you said, that could be misconstrued is that they didn't know how he'd handle being wide receiver 2, per se, heading into this locker room. So how can you say that he handled that? And again, just kind of like the tone, the conversation, because we saw a lot of passionate clips of him on the sideline. And I don't mean passionate as in competitive or bad attitude. I mean passionate as in getting guys going, keeping their heads in the game. Even if there was kind of a rough play call or decision made in a crucial moment, he was really trying to keep everyone's head in it. So talk about his ability to kind of adapt to that wide receiver too.
Oh, yeah, nah. I was kind of worried about that too. But since he got enough targets, he was always going to be happy. But he was really supportive of Nico Collins' growth. and Nico Collins' maturation into being, at that point, on pace to be an all-pro receiver. So he got hurt, missed 5 games, but still ended up with 1,000 yards. So I would say Stefon kind of took on that leadership role. And Stefon isn't stupid. Like, if he sees another dog producing, he knows that's only going to help him. So he doesn't necessarily have to be quote-unquote wide receiver one. And he knew, based off of the role that he was in and where he was placed a lot, because he spent a lot of time in the slot. I believe 52% of his snaps, according to Next Gen Stats, were in the slot. He knew, okay, I'm going to still get my touches, but my touches aren't going to be down the field. So it was kind of like, yin and yang for Nico and Steph, where Steph would do more of the intermediate short stuff and Nico would be more of the deep threat. So he was fine with that because Steph has been in those situations where whether it was Steph and Adam Thielen or Steph and Cole Beasley, granted, in Buffalo, he was the clear number one, but he's been in situations where he's had to share the rock. And again, Steph wants to win. You know what I'm saying? Like, Steph really, 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 really wants to win. That's all he truly cares about is winning. Obviously, again, he wants to get paid against his touches, but winning is for sure number one. And if he doesn't feel like you can win anymore, that's when things get a little rocky. But that never happened in Houston to where he didn't feel like they could win.
Red Sox season is here. They're chasing a pennant. They're chasing to get back to the playoffs. And you know where to catch all the coverage? 310 to Left. Available wherever you get your podcasts. You could also watch it on YouTube as well. Go to Netson's YouTube page, hit the subscribe button, and check out 310 to Left, hosted by TC, Lou Merloni, Alex Spear, and more. Catch everyone you see on Nesson with the Red Sox coverage on 310 to Left as well, along with plenty of interviews from around the team and around the league. That's 310 to Left, wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, breaking that down just a little bit more, because you can understand that from a competitive level. You don't want to put the work in. You don't want to, get up early, work your body to the bone, and feel like there's not a potential reach here of a championship or to win, as you put it. The Patriots are more so in a rebuild fashion over here, and the trajectory is looking at that 3 to 5 year picture. And yes, money talks, but seeing what you saw in terms of his leadership caliber, his passion, the fact that he wants to win, the fact that he is competitive, how's that going to translate in your mind to New England, seeing as how we've got some time here before we might reach that point?
If I had to guess, he's probably going to look at Drake May a little bit how he looked at Josh Allen coming in to Buffalo. Because again, like Drake May and Josh Allen have a lot of similar traits. Obviously, Josh Allen is like the 1% in terms of pure talent, but Drake May has a lot of similar, skill sets in terms of the creativity off script, the arm strength, the ability to throw from different arm slots, the ability to throw when the pocket's getting muddy, the ability to still be able to throw down the field when the pocket is collapsing. So I think he's going to see that talent and be able to uplift that. And again, if Stefon is hooping and doing what he's got to do, then the pitcher's going to have a much, much better chance at winning. So I think that as long as he feels like everybody's committed to winning, people want to win, it'll be fine, even if the W's aren't showing up. So, because I remember when the Texans, granted at that point, they were 5-1, and they went to Green Bay and they lost. They actually lost kind of badly on offense. At least it was a close game, but the offense didn't show up. He was still, upbeat, cheerful, and that was a game where he got into it with Jair Alexander before the game, and that was a national story throughout that day. But he was still, post game, still encouraging guys, still being upbeat, things of that nature. Because again, if he felt like the team has a chance to win, he's good. And I think based off a lot of the moves that the Patriots have made, they brought in a lot of veterans that have won at various places, right? Like the defensive tackle the Patriots just picked up, he just won a Super Bowl, right? Obviously, they brought in Harold. He's had success, and he's been on teams that went to the AFC Championship game, right? So the Patriots have guys that know what it's like to win. And if he's around guys like that, he's going to be just fine.
I love it. It sounds like basically he just needs the buy-in, at least the foundational part of the buy-in in order to get things going. Now, you kind of started to talk about comparisons between Drake May and Josh Allen, but the most important thing, at least what stood out to me during training camp heading into this previous season, was Drake May has that risk it factor. He doesn't mind going for some of those big plays, and fans here want to know, can Stefon Diggs still be a deep threat? Can he still match pace down the end of the field? You're making some faces, so let's put some minds either at ease or bring us down to reality. What do we think in terms of a big threat?
I think he can still be a deep threat at times, but I think that where he's going to be at his best is kind of more that short intermediate aspect. Granted, in Houston, a lot of the routes that he ran down the field came out of the slot. So that's not necessarily like the position where it's conducive for that. But coming off a torn ACL, hitting closer to age 32, I expect him more. I categorize receivers as in three levels: 1 level receiver, 2 level receiver, 3 level receiver. 3 level receiver is a guy that can win at the first, second, and third level. Some guys can only win at the 1 and 2. Some guys only at the 1. He's more in that 2.5-ish range. I still think, like, based off of his injury, because again, I know I did mention that he did tear his ACL. It wasn't like a devastating knee injury. It was more like non-contact, and those are easier, in my opinion, to come back from. He's already been running, working on things of that nature. So I think he can be more like that 2.5-ish range where he can still be an effective wide receiver. I still do think the Patriots probably have to draft a guy. If you want a guy specifically for deep threat stuff, you're probably going to draft somebody. Maybe like like Boyd out of or Bond out of Texas, or Golden. Regardless, probably going to draft somebody specifically for that role. But I think in terms of the intermediate, short game, Stefon can still be effective there.
Yeah, he's known to be a pretty savvy route runner, and coming over to a system such as Josh McDaniels should be beneficiary in that. But you mentioned age. You mentioned what you saw leading up to the injury. Is there still hope that he can be that effective route runner for the team such as the New England Patriots?
Absolutely. I think him and Josh McDaniels are going to be able to make magic to an extent. I think that I've seen what Josh McDaniels did with, I think it's Jacoby Myers. And he was able to make him borderline 1,000-yard receiver. I don't believe he ever got over 1,000 yards, but he was able to produce in New England. And obviously, he went to Vegas with Josh eventually. But I think that Josh can utilize guys with Stefon Diggs' skill set. We've seen it with Wells Welker. We've seen it with Julian Edelman. We've seen it with Myers. So I think, without question, that pairing can work with Josh McDaniels, Drake May, and Stefon Diggs. Yeah, I think he could be a very productive wide receiver.
All right, you're starting to put some minds at ease. Now, you kind of already touched on this in the opening here on Foxborough Rush, but the money, obviously, $69 million, 26 guarantee. And you mentioned the fact that there was a bit of a gap in conversation and negotiations when it came to even keeping him down in Houston. Stroud sounded like he was advocating for him to stay in that locker room, which also speaks to the character and why he wanted to continue playing with a guy like that. But kind of talk us through what you saw coming before he ended up landing this contract with the Patriots and getting an opportunity to grab that kind of money. Is it too much money for a player who's getting up there in age and coming off of injury?
I wouldn't say it's too much money. I'm always a big proponent of, if someone wants to pay you that, then that's what your market is, and somebody's willing to pay him that. So I think that the Texans tend to, when it comes to free agents at least, outside the Neil Hunter, they tend to be more, not necessarily on the frugal side, but they try to get good deals in that aspect. So I think it's more about that than anything. The people that they'll spend top dollar for are the people that they drafted. And obviously they did not draft Stefon Diggs. And they kind of signaled what last year was going to be when they cut the end of his contract, because in all honesty, that was a very, very team-friendly deal. But they kind of set up for it to be a 1-year rental, and that's what it ended up being. So I always thought that, since he made 22 last year for the Texans, when Nico make it 24, they knew they had to kind of spread that money elsewhere, because they moved off of Laramie Tunsil, because they had to get ready to pay guys like Derek Stingley. Eventually, Daniel Hunter, which they did. They're going to have to pay Will, maybe Nico again in the next year and a half, and CJ. If CJ has a good year next year, they have to pay him some big, big, big money next year. So, when that happens, you have to move off of some guys that are past 30, because usually you can bank on guys past 30 eventually regressing. Whenever that regression is, it kind of depends on the guy's body, but in reality, they're kind of the Patriots South to an extent, to where Nick Casario spent time in New England. We're going to move off a guy 1 year early versus 1 year late.
That makes sense to me. Now, of course, we've touched on attitude, we've touched on leadership, we've touched on a number of things, but before we let you go, got to take it back to the beginning. There's so many headlines, there's so many narratives that play in before a player even gets an opportunity to do just that, make a case for himself through his game. So is there anything you learned about Stefon Diggs once he joined this locker room that you either weren't expecting, something that he surprised you in, or something that he just does very well that stands guard to his personality that should kind of be illuminated a bit more?
Yeah, I would say you always hear about him as a route runner, and you see it on film, but watching it in person was pretty impressive. Just the shiftiness. Obviously, I want to see how he kind of recovers after tearing his ACL. But that shiftiness that he had to be able to create separation was unmatched. And again, like he brings like a next level dog mentality that can permeate throughout the entire offense, and it's pretty contagious, right? Like he's going to bark, and he's going to bark at the other team. I remember at one training camp practice that they had in Cleveland, him and the safety, well, he ended up becoming a nickel back, but Jalen Petrie, the Texans starting the nickel, them two just arguing, going back and forth, because Stefon wanted to win some reps, and Jalen obviously was able to get him on a couple of reps, and then he let him know that you can't guard me. You can't guard me. He let him know that for a while, and then I think they went into a competition period, and they were making plays, and Stefon Diggs was letting the defense know. So two things you can expect from Stefon Diggs is ultra competitor and a savvy route runner.
It sounds good to me. And like I said, you put a lot of minds at ease. But more importantly, let's see if the initial excitement that you guys felt down in Houston and the reality of what he can bring to the table. And I like that you mentioned that it wasn't a contact injury, so the recovery could be different in terms of his impact once he's fully healed and ready to go. Translates here to New England. But thank you so much yet again, NFL Nation reporter for the Houston Texans, DJ Bien-Amie, joining us here on Foxborough Rush.
Thank you, DJ Bien-Amie. Thank you, Taylor Kyles, for joining the show. Thanks to all you guys making us a part of your day. He's Travis Thomas. I'm George Blecci. This is Foxborough Rush. Make sure to catch new episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The draft is around the corner. It's almost April, guys. It's almost April. We'll have full draft coverage all leading up. Everything Patriots right here on Foxborough Rush. Till then, we'll see you guys next time.